everyone. It's so nice to see you on this rainy day, and we just have a wonderful setup here. My name is Subha Hanif, and I am one of the board members of OneHamtramck. For those of you that I was able to meet, it was great to meet you, and for those of you I haven't, I will mingle with you after. So OneHamtramck, just to give you an idea of the organization, it's a very progressive organization. It was dedicated to help bring people together in this really small but highly diverse community. We do a lot of cultural events and projects where we offer an opportunity to learn about each other, because at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to do. We're really trying to learn about each other, break down barriers. We do cultural events, projects addressing racism. If you've come to any of the other forums, we've talked about racism, we've talked about Islamophobia, we've talked about what it means to be a Bangladeshi American in this day and age, and other forms of discrimination that we've also talked about, really bordering on the theme of some of the things that citizens face where we are not able to get equal rights and justice. So OneHamtramck is really about all of those things. My father, Abu Hanif, who passed away actually recently this past year in September of 2016, was a member of the board of Hamtramck, and we are currently actually working on a very exciting project. We are trying to create the first in America, the first new large-scale outdoor Bangladeshi American mural. And if we can do this here in Hamtramck in Michigan, it will be the first in America. So we're hoping to make history with that, and he helped start that as well, and it will represent his dedication to the people of Hamtramck. So today I wanted to welcome you to the OneHamtramck Monthly Forum. And I wanted to welcome you to the Bangladeshi American community here. We're here in the Aladdin Cafe, and we thank them for allowing us to use their beautiful courtyard, even though it's raining, but it's still beautiful. The outline for tonight's program, it's going to be a 10-minute discussion from our director, Bill Meyer, followed by a 20 to 30-minute presentation by investigative journalist Curt Guyette. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name in any way, on the subject of emergency management, followed by a 20 to 30-minute report from Hamtramck's Mayor Pro Tem Anam Miah about how this applies to local government here, and then we will open the floor to questions and answers. Hopefully it doesn't rain, and I don't think it will. But first I'd like you to introduce you to Alisa Perkins, who has some things to say as well. Thank you.
Hi, it's good to see you all tonight. I'm Alisa Perkins. I'm also a board member of OneHamtramck, and I'd like to briefly outline the work of OneHamtramck and just add a little more to what Subha began to introduce. We have sponsored many public events, film showings, lectures, book talks, but our first major project was a musical multimedia event called The Home Suite, Coming to Hamtramck. It featured 18 local Hamtramck immigrants telling their stories about where they came from, why they left their original home, how they got to Hamtramck, and what they think of their new home. It was accompanied by original music performed by the Hamtramck World Music Ensemble. The video is available to watch on YouTube. Our next major project was the amazing mural painted by the world-famous Dasik Fernandez on the wall of the Sheba restaurant. And that is a mural that represents Yemeni Arab community. And I'm not sure if that's the very first Yemeni mural. That would be something interesting to know. So because of the success of that first project, we have great reason to believe that the next mural, the Bangladeshi American mural, will be just as successful. Now, this mural of the Yemeni images, Yemeni and Yemeni American images, was called The Middle East Coming to Hamtramck, and it has become the symbol of Hamtramck's diversity, and it has been used in movies, news reports, and other venues, and it's a source of pride for the Yemeni community and us all, as it represents the history and culture of one of the most important groups in the city. As Subha mentioned, we are currently working on a similar project in the Bangladeshi community, which is the mural project that she began to describe to you. And another thing that's happening in current news is that the OneHamtramck website is being redesigned and will be up very soon. Now after this, the next monthly forum for us to look forward to will be Friday, July 21st, location to be decided, and that will feature Dr. Sally Howell, of University of Michigan Dearborn, a very renowned historian. And she'll be talking about the relatively unknown history of Muslims in Hamtramck. All of our previous forums from OneHamtramck and filmed events are available to view on the OneHamtramck channel on YouTube. So here is Director of OneHamtramck, Bill Meyer, who will begin the program. Thank you for coming.
All right, thank you very much for all of you showing up tonight in the rain. Even though we're outside, we got a nice cover over us, so we're not getting wet, I hope. So when we set this particular forum up, we tried to figure what would the title be. And we thought, well, how about what is democracy? Should we put it in a question mark or not? It's Democracy in Hamtramck. That was the title of it. Question mark or no question mark? We decided to put the question mark there because we're not sure how democracy exhibits itself in Hamtramck or in local government. And that's what we're going to hopefully find out tonight. So what is democracy? Let's go to the regular textbook definition. It's a system of government in which power is vested in the people who rule either directly or through freely elected representatives, as opposed to theocracy or monarchy or anarchism, socialist democracy, fascism, or oligarchy. We've been hearing a lot about oligarchy, where it's ruled by a small wealthy elite. Or corporatocracy is another nice word to use. That's power by the corporation. And there's many other kinds of governments. So we're all more or less under the rule of law. That's how we can live together and work together. There's laws, there's bylaws, there's ordinances, there's charters, there's all sorts of rules that you can make up that tell us what we have to do and what we cannot do. But how and to whom are these laws actually applied? And who benefits? Are any certain people favored over other people? Laws can favor the public or can favor corporations. Depends on who's making the laws. There's a slogan, people before profits, a very famous slogan that says people should have power rather than corporations who want to make money, and we want to have health and happiness and medical care and all other things we need. So do we defend the public versus privatization? Public schools versus private schools. If the people don't rule, then is it democratic if people don't rule? Corporations make decisions, and they make a lot of decisions that affect our lives and the public all the time. In history, laws were even made to promote and defend slavery for hundreds of years. They were legal laws written by white men, mostly, no women, I doubt, who said this is the way the law should be and slavery is good. So the law isn't always right, unless you agree with slavery. And then they used laws to carry out the extermination of tens of millions of Native Americans when the white man came to this land. So those are laws. Those are all laws. So we all live under laws. Some are legitimate, some are good, some should be sustained. So we have order, and some should be discarded. Tonight we're going to hear about the emergency manager process, the phenomenon, how it affects our city in addition to that. Hamtramck is going through 2 emergency managers. 2. And maybe 7 or more city managers we've had in a very short span of time. Hamtramck's been traditionally divided politically since almost anyone can remember. As in all of America, it has been run mostly by white people. Here in Hamtramck it was first Germans, then the heavy Polish majority, since the beginning of this city. But the city is now going through a major transition of power, with the growing Muslim community taking a stronger interest in participating in city government. When the white majority ran the city, there was maybe 10 to 20% non-white. Now the balance has changed to almost 80% non-white. Although almost all department heads, city employees, the fire, the police officers are all still mostly white. This change has created a tension in the city that has created a new form of political divide. Add to that the imposed emergency management process that we're going to hear about that has been taking away public power across the country, and you have a unique challenge here in Hamtramck. So we are very privileged to have with us tonight one of the most well-known local authorities on this subject of emergency management. Veteran journalist Curt Guyette has been based in Detroit since 1995. After 18 years at the Metro Times, he joined the ACLU of Michigan in 2013 as the organization's first investigative reporter. His work focuses on emergency management and open government. In 2016, he was recognized as the Michigan Press Association's Journalist of the Year for his role in exposing the Flint water crisis. We're very fortunate to have with us tonight, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Curt Guyette.
Thanks for the introduction. Thanks for having me here. As Bill said, I was hired in 2013 to investigate and write about issues of emergency management related to Michigan's emergency management law, which is the most extreme receivership law that's in place anywhere in the United States. And because Flint was one of the cities that was taken over by the state, I got involved and started learning some things about the water, and things just went from there. And you know, I could talk for an hour about Flint, but that's not the main purpose here tonight, which is to give an overview of the history of the emergency management law, which in 1990 the state passed the first of three receivership laws, PA 72, and that was an emergency financial manager law. And there's a distinction. What we have now is emergency manager, then it was called emergency financial manager. And the name difference is important because the distinction is that those first managers, really their area of control was over strictly financial issues. And that law was in place until 2011. What happened was that the Detroit Public Schools had been taken over by the state with an emergency financial manager in place, and that emergency financial manager started to try to get involved in areas regarding curriculum. And the school board sued and said, you're out of your lane. Curriculum is still the school board's authority. And they won that case. You know, the old Chinese saying, be careful of what you wish for, because it might come true. Because the response to the school board winning that case was for Governor Snyder, who was newly in office at that point, to come back with a new law, the emergency manager law, this initially PA4, that gave vast and extended powers to these appointed receivers. The new law formulated by Snyder and the Republican legislature gave just unprecedented powers to these appointees. They could break collective bargaining agreements. They could create new ordinances by fiat. They could abolish existing ordinances. They could and did go after retiree health care, although that is still being fought out in the courts. It's not clear whether that action is legal or not, but that's been a pretty consistent thing that these emergency managers did. The new law, there was one thing spelled out that these emergency managers could not do, which was miss a bond payment, which I think gets to the heart of the law and is part of the state's justification for taking over cities, which is that if cities fail financially, if they default, then that affects bond ratings across the state. And so the state's justification for taking over cities is that they need to do it in order for the good of the whole state. The new law was instituted, and the public reaction to it was pretty intense. And through a largely volunteer effort, they started gathering petition signatures to put the measure on the ballot for a public referendum. And one of the things that happened while that was going on was that a group of wealthy business people from the western part of the state challenged the petition signatures. And they challenged it, saying that the point type on the heading for that the signature gatherers were using was off by a pica point, which is almost infinitesimal. And it was a completely bogus technicality that they were even wrong on. They were just wrong on it. But to try to stop something from going before voters on a minor technical issue like that just speaks to the heart of the anti-democratic nature of everything that supporters of this law are about. Because this law takes away democracy. Along with giving all this extraordinary power to these appointed emergency managers, the power of locally elected officials is completely taken away. They only have whatever power the emergency manager chooses to give them. They don't get paid if the emergency manager decides they don't get paid. Out in Benton Harbor, the emergency manager said, yeah, you can hold your city council meetings. Here's what you can do at your city council meetings. You can call them to order, you can approve the minutes of the previous meeting, and you can close the meeting. That's it. You can't do any other thing. So that's the extent to which democracy can be denied. He also sold off the radio station. They had a radio station that that city council people opposed to emergency managers were using as a platform to get their message of resistance out. He sold it off. First he tried selling it on eBay, which was an illegal thing to do. You can't sell a public license on eBay, but regardless. So it is a combination. It's really an autocracy. Bill was talking about the different forms of government. Autocracy is ruled by one person, and it is an austerity-driven autocracy because, like I said, they have to make sure bond payments get made, no matter what, right? Do whatever you want as long as you make sure the banks get paid, even if it means poisoning a whole town of 100,000 people, which is what happened in Flint. You get up there, you get in control, you got to cut money. They said, we can save $5 million by using this river water while they're building this new Cary pipeline. They didn't do what was necessary to make the plant able to actually treat that river water because they were also cutting corners. It was, they say run government like a business. Well, they succeeded. They're running government just like ExxonMobil. And you had the Gulf oil spill disaster because ExxonMobil was all about profits and cut safety measures in order to maximize profit, which leads to the disaster. Flint is the same thing. They were trying to make all the cuts they could in order to make it look like they were balancing the books and put the safety, the health, and well-being of a city of 100,000 people at risk. And because they cut so many corners, they poisoned the whole city and then caused, we really don't know how many deaths because there's also a Legionnaire's disease outbreak. And the other thing that happened is because emergency management takes away the checks and balances that help make democracy function as well as it does function. Because under normal circumstances, you would have had the city of Flint as an independent actor conducting these tests and making decisions about what their water sources were. And then you would have the state of Michigan there providing oversight. But under emergency management, those checks and balances are gone because the person running the city of Flint is an appointee of the governor. And the person running the Department of Environmental Quality is an appointee of the governor. And so the person running the Department of Health and Human Services is an appointee of the governor. So when someone from the what's being alleged in the criminal charges that are being filed is that there was a big organized cover-up arranged because everybody again is on the same team. So the absence of checks and balances is one of the fundamental flaws of this very extreme emergency management law. Under emergency management, there's certain things that are it's almost like a cookie cutter approach. That's another criticism of the law. They don't really tailor the help to the nature of the city that's being taken over. They do the same things pretty much across the board. One thing they do is borrow more money to pay off debts. Another thing that they do is privatize city services. Another thing that they do is sell off city assets. You want to talk about selling off city assets? The city of Detroit, which its whole bankruptcy could not have been done unless it was under emergency management law. You know, they had to give up ownership of the Detroit Institute of the Arts. You know, it's still there and available to the public, but that used to be owned by the people of Detroit. And the top evaluation of it, the top appraisal of that collection came in at $8 billion, with a B, $8 billion. As part of the grand bargain that helped ease the assault on retirees, the city got between $800 and $900 million. So that's 10 cents on the dollar for their art collection, which was forcibly stripped from them. Control of the Detroit water and sewer department system, which served all of southeast Michigan. Vast system that Detroit helped build the suburbs by providing them with water and sewer. If they didn't do that, they couldn't have grown up. That gets taken away from them through bankruptcy, and now it's the Great Lakes Water Authority that's renting from Detroit the system that it built, and now Detroit has to pay the Great Lakes Water Authority to use the system that Detroit built. You know, that's what emergency management does. What emergency management did was target largely minority and largely poor towns. People ask me, would what happened in Flint happened in Bloomfield Hills or the Grosse Pointes? And it's like, there's no way. They say, well, how can you be so certain? It's because, for starters, those cities don't get taken over by the state. Those cities don't get their democracy taken away from them. It's poor cities and cities that almost exclusively have majority minorities. You know, mostly African American majorities, but you know, you have the situation in Hamtramck, which is unique. And just on a personal side note, it's so wonderful, you know, to come to Hamtramck. I honestly believe it is the most cosmopolitan city in all of southeast Michigan, and so I really you know, admire what you guys have going on here. I digressed a little bit, but so we go back. Snyder and the Republican legislature passed PA4. People gather the signatures to get it on the ballot. They come up with this baloney excuse to try to stop it, which ties things up for months and months and months and drains the resources of people that don't have that many resources. But eventually the state Supreme Court rules in their favor. They prevail. It gets on the ballot. Significant majority of Michigan voters reject the law because it in their hearts, even, you know, almost every single county in the state voted in favor of overturning this law. So, you know, even though with parts that we, you know, consider the red parts of Michigan, rejected it because, you know, as Americans, we're raised to believe in democracy, and something that takes away democracy, just we know in our hearts is not right. The response of Governor Snyder and the Republican legislature, that got rejected in November of 2012. Less than a month later, they had a new law in a lame duck session of the legislature that very much mirrors the law that was previously there, except that they attached an appropriation to it. Under Michigan law, if you attach appropriation to a law, it's not subject to referendum. So I just would ask you to think about this for a second. You have this absolutely anti-democratic law that's implemented. People of the state react to it, and through the democratic process, reject it. The response of the state is to reinstitute it, and reinstitute it in a way that doesn't make it subject to the democratic process anymore. you know, that is just almost Orwellian in a way, or that I don't even know what the words are to describe it, but how fierce the anti-democratic aspect of it is. And this is one other thing. I think I'm getting close to the end of my time here. But one other thing is they talk about, well, in some cases city councils vote to do things. I would make the argument that city councils, under the control of an emergency management, their votes really, I don't think, should count, because they're not, even though they're elected, someone else decides how much they get paid, and somebody else decides what the scope of their authority is. Now, I don't know about you, but any workplace I was ever in, the person that decided how much I got paid and what my jobs were is called my boss. And city councils and mayors, their only boss is supposed to be the people that elected them. Under emergency management, their boss is the emergency manager. And in a lot of places, what happens is that you get people cooperating with them in order to curry favor with them, in order to keep their jobs and keep getting paid. And so that's another aspect of emergency management that I don't think it's talked about a lot. So I think that's, then the final thing, which we're now again seeing play out here up in Flint. When the emergency management leaves, receivership doesn't end. When the emergency management leaves, they put in something called the Receivership Transition Advisory Board, which I was just writing something about it today. I go, that's really a misnomer, because there's nothing advisory about it. They decide. Just like up in Flint, the city council recently voted to not put liens on the homes of people delinquent in their payments for water that poisoned them. They didn't think it was right that people should lose their homes for failing to pay for water that poisoned them, in some cases killed them. The Receivership Transition Advisory Board said, no, you need to place those liens on the homes and foreclose on them if they're not paying their bills. So, if people didn't realize that democracy is not returned when emergency manager leaves before, what just happened in Flint is a chilling example of how true that statement is. And what the emergency managers do, and every one of them do this, on their way out their door, they give some final executive orders. One is that they usually create an emergency, or not emergency, like a city manager or a city administrator kind of position that they give expanded powers to, so it makes them like an emergency manager light, really. And then they also say no law or ordinance or rule imposed by an emergency manager can be overturned by the city council and mayor until 1 year after receivership ends. And like I just said, receivership doesn't end when the emergency management leaves. It ends when they decide to disband the Transition Advisory Board, of which there's no really clear set rules about what it takes for the Transition Advisory Board to be dissolved. It's really just up to the governor and the state when they want to let democracy return to any particular city. And one other point that's important, I'm sorry if this is a little scattered, but there's just so many different things involved in this law that are outrageous. But that the first one, the Emergency Financial Manager Law, PA 72, which Lou Schimmel in the early 2000s was here and came down with a pretty heavy hand. But that law was not that much used. Really ramped up under Snyder. But the other thing that happened was that you had the financial crash of 07, 08 that really hit particularly minority communities hard because they were the targets of predatory lending. So the housing market collapse that was the key to the overall economic collapse really hit minority communities hard. When they were in the most need of help in order to stay afloat and solvent financially, what the Governor Snyder and the Republican legislature did was gave a huge tax cut to corporations and paid for it in part by cutting revenue sharing to these cities. That's my time is up. So pushing them over the edge, right? They're teetering. They're dealing with this terrible financial collapse, and instead of, they're like on the edge of the cliff, and instead of reaching down and giving them a hand and helping them pull them back up, they just went like that and kicked them in the face, and there they went under. And then they used that to justify coming in and taking them over, selling off their assets, going after retirees, and privatizing services. That's at least, in my analysis, is what much of emergency management has been about Michigan. And so I think you're going to hear about specifically your own town.
My name is Ramsey Hussain. I am also on the board for OneHamtramck. I'm happy to see all of you here. The first thing I would like to say is if you've come since the beginning, we do have a donation box. Our suggested donation is $5. That would help out OneHamtramck in all our projects. They cost money most of the time. I'd like to thank Curt Guyette so very much for giving us that.
My pleasure.
And
thank you.
we've decided to have a short question and answer period with Curt Guyette before Anam, before he speaks, so that we can keep things moving along. Please keep your questions short, and because we have limited time, and I will come out to you. If anybody has a question or a comment, raise your hand. I will get to you as soon as I can.
The unique things, my name is Cary, Beth, I live in town, Utah. One of the unique things about our situation in emergency management is that this was a council that actually requested emergency management. So how does that then factor into this concept of democracy around emergency management? That if now we're frustrated that we no longer have the power that we gave up, I'm wondering where our spot is to play.
Well, I think I'll let your councilman talk about that specifically, but I can say there was like a little hitch in that emergency manager law, the one that we're living under now, which one of the changes that they did make to it that was supposed to be making it more democratic was that they gave cities that were in threat of being put under receivership a little menu of options, and that could be ask for mediation, ask for an emergency manager to come in, ask to be able to go into bankruptcy, or to seek like a consent agreement, which would be like a contract with the state that would allow them to work their way out of it, and if they broke the contract, then the state could come back in. So, but one of the things about that law is that cities can still have emergency management thrust on them under even that democratic, supposed democratization of it. But for certain cities, if they were already under receivership through the emergency financial manager law that was the predecessor law, they didn't have a choice. So Detroit, let's see, I have a little list here, but there were four of the cities that were taken over. They didn't have that choice of the supposed democratization. The state just structured it because they didn't want to let those cities out from under their grip. And so they wrote into this law almost like this grandfather clause saying if you were under state control already, you don't get the choices that everybody else in the state gets. You get an emergency manager, ask for it or not.
Twyla Meyer. I'm curious, how is a tab board selected, and what process by who are they?
They are appointed by the governor, and they're supposed to have a certain amount of business administrative experience. But one thing that they typically are not is residents of the city. Up in Flint, because I was just researching this for something that I'm writing, only 2 of the 5 people appointed to make what could be life or death decisions for the residents don't live there. And it's the same way with the emergency managers. I think almost to a person, they didn't live in the cities that they were given control over. So they have no real emotional attachment to it. It's not like your city council people that, you know, I covered a lot of city councils over my years, and you know, you get a fair amount of goofballs sometimes running for political office, right? It's not including the present company by any means whatsoever, but everybody knows. But you know what? They at least love their cities, you know, right or wrong. You know, I think for the most part they really believe that they're doing the right thing for their cities. These emergency managers, again, it gets back to them doing the right thing is cutting, and not setting the city up to grow. I mean, one of the things that happened is that a fair number of these cities were taken over more than once. Hamtramck being one of them. Highland Park was taken over 3 times, and schools were taken over. Up in terms of the charter school system that takes students away and takes funding away from traditional public schools, and the exodus from the city, and the downward spiral that gets in. It's the same way with these cities, that it's a structural financial problem. Like here's the best example. Detroit's 139 square miles, and it's a city that was built at its peak had 1.8 million people. Now it has fewer than 700,000 people, but they still have the same amount of streets they have to keep paved. They still have the same amount of sewer and water lines that they have to maintain. But the tax base is not there to do it, and the money is just not there to do it. So it doesn't matter who you are. It's not something that you can manage your way out of. It is a much deeper, more fundamental problem, and that's why they've put an emergency manager, and the schools get worse. They put an emergency manager, and 5, 6, 7 years later, they're putting another one in because they're not solving the underlying structural problems. They try to claim it to be a managerial problem.
Hey, I'm Jim. I live here in Hamtramck. So, I guess my question is, when you have a government that's already set up and it's in a death spiral going down, how is bankruptcy better than a city manager?
Well, the theory and the reality are 2 different things, as I learned covering the Detroit bankruptcy. But in theory, bankruptcy could be a way to protect public assets. In theory, the bankruptcy court judge cannot force you to divest yourself of assets in order to pay off creditors, because cities are not corporations. You know, a corporation can go out of business. They could owe so much and have to divest in order to satisfy their creditors. They go out of business. They go out of business. Cities can't go out of business. So if you force a city to sell off its assets, it's not going to be able to survive physically. It'll go on as a city, but it'll be so badly damaged won't have economic recovery. So the theory behind Chapter 9 bankruptcy is it's supposed to protect that. But one thing that happened in the Detroit bankruptcy was that Jones Day, which years before had floated a legal theory that you could use Chapter 9 bankruptcy to go after the pensions of retirees, even in states where there's a strong constitutional protection of those pensions. And they wrote legal scholarly papers about it. They continue to always frequently reference Detroit as an example of a city that this might be put to the test. And then, sure enough, the partner of Jones Day got hired as the emergency manager over Detroit, and his law firm, the one that floated this legal theory, got hired to run the bankruptcy, and darned if they didn't get the court to agree with them, and now retiree pensions are at risk in bankruptcy. So I'm not sure what the the benefits of bankruptcy over emergency management are at this point, in reality.
If there's no more questions from anybody else, I'd like to ask one last question. Do you know what other cities in Michigan have successfully gotten out of emergency management? And if so, how did they do that?
Well, all of the cities, there were 8 cities at one point that were under emergency managers. All of those emergency managers have left office. I don't know the exact number, but I think it is 3 cities that the transition advisory boards have also been dissolved at this point. But you know, one of the major things that was done in all these cities in order to help balance the books was severe cuts to retiree health care plans. A lot of it was similar to what they did in the Detroit bankruptcy. That prior to the bankruptcy, retirees from the city of Detroit had very good Blue Cross Blue Shield coverage that they paid 20% for. After bankruptcy, what they got was a $125 a month stipend and a shove out the door saying good luck. Because, you know, for some of these people, their cost to get it the equivalent of what they used to have is $1,000 a month. And that the average pension check for a City of Detroit retiree is $18,000 a year. So, you know, if you're making $18,000 a year and you're paying $12,000 a year for your insurance, you know, your retirement is anything but golden. You're struggling every single day to survive. And that's one of the consequences of bankruptcy that doesn't ever get talked about, really. But the same kind of thing was done in city after city under emergency management, but those also being challenged in court, as is the emergency management law itself. As soon as it was filed, the Sugar Law Center in Detroit and others, including the ACLU of Michigan, filed a court action in federal court saying it was unconstitutional. And it would seem like on its face of it, it would just be blatantly unconstitutional, taking away people's right to democracy. But it's anything but simple and clear cut, and really it has been a completely uphill fight all the way, and it is still, you know, basic aspects of it, whether it's even going to be actually heard in court any further or not, are on appeal right now. So it's fighting it in courts has been very difficult. Really, I think that, like, what happened in Flint, right? That you cannot have a more poignant example of the failure of this law. Even if it's successful in other places, if it fails this badly someplace else, there's something wrong with it. You know, look at all the successes you want, but anything that fails where people die, where kids are damaged for their whole lives because of lead poisoning, you know, there's something wrong with that law. And there has been really nothing in the legislature to improve it, despite the horrible example set in Flint, despite the lack of evidence of the evidence of what a disaster it's been financially for school districts like Highland Parks and the city of Detroit. What it's done in cities like Hamtramck, where, you know, and I shouldn't really speak because I'm not a resident here. I don't cover the city, but, you know, in my interviews with people, what I'm saying is the emergency managers here didn't do anything to help build and capitalize on the incredible potential that this city has. So,
How many states are enacted that?
you know, I think 17, although I don't know that for certain. But no state gives the degree of unchecked power to the receivers than Michigan. It's the most extreme law of its nature in the United States.
Thank you. Thank you, Curt Guyette, for your comments on the emergency management law. Our next speaker is a person we're all familiar with here in Hamtramck. Has been the mayor pro tem of Hamtramck since January, and he's a former president of United Steelworkers Union Local 690. He's been a council member for 6 years now. He has led the move to not renew the contract for the city manager here in Hamtramck. And he's currently on the planning board, and he's a former zoning board commissioner for 4 years. So, I mean, when do you have time for your family? I'm just curious. Okay, he has a beautiful family, but he wants to give his service to the city, and we appreciate what he does. Some of us don't appreciate what he does, some of us do. But he's here to try to explain what he does and how this emergency management law applies here to Hamtramck. So let's give respect and listen to our Mayor Pro Tem, Anam.
Thank you, everyone. OneHamtramck Bill Meyer, appreciate you putting this gathering so we can speak openly and share our views and opinions on democracy and where democracy is headed, especially in our community, and not only in our community but in the country as the current president and administration is showing troubling symptoms on our democracy. Let me start by speaking on a little clarity on what happened with emergency manager in Hamtramck. When I first got elected, 2012, city of Hamtramck was going through some troubling time, as many other communities in our size and categories was going through, because of the housing crisis. And those of you that was here then understood with the American Axle situation and the amount of job that was lost, not only because of American Axle having issues, but the surrounding businesses that was affected by American Axle closing. That had a tremendous amount of impact in our revenue and the money that was coming into the city general fund. So with those monies being an issue, and I don't have the books in front of me to give you exact numbers, but those funds were not replenished by any other means when the tax base was gone from American Axle. So instead of having payless paydays in the city of Hamtramck for those good employees that was given their all to service everyone that lived here, the finance department found ways to make sure people got paid, and they found ways not to make the MERS retirement payment for a substantial amount of time. So the MERS payment got behind about $2 million. Once I was elected, we were never clearly brought up to speed on how bad MERS payment was behind. I was still in the learning curve. It's not an excuse. But going forward, when we realized MERS is knocking on our door saying, hey, where is the payment? We need that payment in order to make sure all of the employees have their retirement package intact. Because if you don't make the payment, guess what? You're getting kicked out of MERS, and then you're really in some serious, waters. Only option we had as elected official was to seek loan from the state of Michigan, Department of Treasury. We met numerous times with the Department of Treasury officials. At that point in time, Department of Treasurer was Andy Dillon. I personally, along with Mayor Karen Majewski and Councilman Tom Jankowski, we met with them and their officials, and they set it up. We were not all allowed to meet with them at one setting, the entire council and mayor. They wanted 3 and 3, along one with the mayor and 3 other council at a different time. maybe because they didn't have room, I didn't know. I was still learning. If they, one of those things that I came in with, that elected officials do their job to their best of their ability, because they're serving the public. They're serving the public's need and making sure that the taxpayers' dollars are spent wisely and appropriately. So we met with Andy Dillon and some of his office staff on few occasions. And let me give you a clarity on what Andy Dillon promised the city official of Hamtramck. We were not Highland Park, and we were not Flint. Hamtramck have a minor hiccup. Those were the words that Mr. Dillon used. That Hamtramck was a minor hiccup, that this would be a shotgun approach, 90-day in and out. The state would come in under the emergency law, that they would be able to come in and right-side some of the department and the contract that the city was obligated for almost another 2 years we could not touch. But the emergency manager law, as you guys have heard from Curt report, allowed the emergency manager to modify or even open contract and have some new negotiation aspect be implemented in place. So we were promised that it would be a shotgun approach, 90 days, emergency manager would come in and change or tweak some of the contract so that we were in a position to pay everybody and be able to get the loan, where the loan payment would be set in motion so that we can repay that loan over whatever was a 10 years or 20 year, whatever the loan payment would be. So we come back home, we come back to council, we have a work session to discuss what is our best recourse. All of our colleagues, we talk amongst ourselves. The finance department is there, the city manager at that time is there. You know what? We don't want to wait for the state to come in, knock on our door, talking about you're in serious financial crisis. We see the need of the state loan as a way for us to correct the pattern or correct our ship going forward. Including myself, we believe that was the best thing to do, was to bring in the emergency manager, not wait for a crisis to happen, but we see the potential of an issue, a potential of a circumstance where we're going to be laying people off or having payless paydays. We wanted to avoid all of those things by having the loan be approved by the Department of Treasury and having the emergency manager come in and open two of our major contracts, which is the fire and police department, and modify some of the things so that everybody can still be employed. We can get the loan to pay the MERS back, and the saving that would come out of those modifications would be to make sure the loan payment is put in place so that the loan would be repaid. Soon as the resolution was passed, I guess the whole mask came off of Mr. Dillon. It was no longer, is this a 90-day process? It was a 2.5-year process on the emergency manager alone. The emergency manager comes in. We were getting basically a couple of bags of peanuts per month. We were not getting a salary like City of Highland Park or City of Detroit as council persons are being compensated. We are, in my opinion, are given gas reimbursement. I believe it's less than $300 a month. So there's no secret. There's no thousands of dollars that's being compensated to your local elected official or your mayor. Your emergency manager that was appointed by the state comes in and cuts our salary. Not all of it, but even certain percentage of it, even though it wasn't something that was substantial, just to show their authority, just to show that they are capable of doing anything and anything they so choose to. So going into that emergency manager process, she comes in, shuts everybody down, no communication with council or the mayor, you know what, here's the problem, let's figure out the solution. Nope. So we were blindsided by the Department of Treasury and the people that was promising us a 90-day process turned into a 2.5-year process. So some of you may have heard, oh, the council allowed or council brought in the emergency manager. Yes, we did, but we didn't bring it under the perception that you may have been led to believe. You have been lied to. And that's their number one agenda, is they will lie and deceive the public along with the elected officials into getting what they want, which is control over local municipalities, especially the minority local municipalities. They cannot go in and lie to, say, Birmingham, Bloomfield, Rochester, Auburn Hills, Royal Oak, because not only will their constituents and the elected official have been aware of their deceptions and some of their tactics on how they get control and how to avoid those state takeovers. Had I been aware and believed that Mr. Dillon would lie to my face, now that I do believe, I don't trust any one individual from the Department of Treasury, from Lansing to Snyder. Rick Snyder would not have a truth conversation with me because I don't believe these people. They are nothing but liars and deceivers of democracy. They want control, and they want control for themselves. So going forward, that's how the emergency manager came in, and came in with no intention of doing any good. As Curt mentioned, it had a great opportunity to not only shine and polish the jewel that Hamtramck is, but wasted almost 2.5 years just collecting a paycheck. Let me give you one example. When it was time for her to go, we looked in and was getting ready to hire a new city manager that would be in place after she left. The process on hiring a city manager was given to MML, Michigan Municipal League. Have done hundreds, if not more, search for city managers for many other local cities and other government entities. And their guideline, if I'm not mistaken, was from start to finish is about 12 weeks. So emergency manager initiates the search. MML says, whoa, Hamtramck, you're in financial distress. Guess what? We're going to do it for free of charge. MML is going to do it for free of charge. Not a single red cent will be given from the city of Hamtramck, from the taxpayer funds. We'll do it for free. It'll take us 12 weeks from start to finish, and hey, we got our credentials, and you know what we're capable of doing. We're going to find you the best candidate that is going to fit right into this community. Halfway through that process, the emergency manager and the Department of Treasury decides to cancel that contract with MML. Says, hey, MML, we don't want you to do the search no more. We're going to hire this third party at almost $40-some thousand for the search. And the Department of Treasury is going to pay half of that, and the city of Hamtramck is going to pay half. We all question, like, what is going on with this city or emergency manager? I mean, you're getting MML to do the search for free, and they're halfway done with the process on finding a viable candidate, and you're telling them, stop, you're fired, we're going to hire another firm to do the search at cost, almost $40,000, where the city of Hamtramck doesn't have the money to pay 20 of that thousand? Doesn't sound right. How they say it doesn't pass the smell test. So of course, we, the elected body at that point in time, do not have a say-so in it. They go ahead and hire this third party, and they do their thing and bring in candidates. Anyways, this candidate is hired by the emergency manager, not by your council or mayor. So it's hired by your emergency manager that was here. For whatever reason, this manager and this administration, under the final orders, some of the final orders, as Curt brought it up earlier, they are good for, still keeping their tentacles and making sure they still got a chokehold on your throat. Left some of this final order with this new administration and this new city manager. And this new city manager, for whatever reason, instead of believing that she was hired to be a city manager, got it in her head that she was a new emergency manager. From day one, she acted, responded, and treated everyone as an emergency manager, not as a city manager. So democracy starts falling apart. We were hoping that the emergency manager is gone. Now we have a new city manager. We can start the process of rebuilding our relationship with the administration and the people that was employed by the city, and looking forward to a brighter future on having a working relationship, whether it's good or bad. Democracy have proven one thing is that we debate, we disagree, we agree, but at the end of the day, we move forward on mutually agreed upon on understanding that sometimes I might have to give a little to move to the next issue, and my colleague across the table understands that same philosophy, is that maybe the next day I might have to give a little to move forward to the next issue, so we can debate and progress as a whole, as a community. Well, right off the rip, we try to implement setting an agenda that was mutually agreed upon by council and the colleague of all the council members. It's a council meeting. It is not a mayor's meeting. It's not a city manager's meeting. City manager and mayor are directed to put the agenda together. Not set the agenda, but put the agenda together. So we brought in that we wanted to have public comment at the beginning of the meeting to those that's already there, and give the public that's coming in a few minutes late that they may not make it for the public comment at the beginning, to be allowed to speak at the end of the meeting, prior to maybe the manager's report or the mayor's comments, or Mayor Pro Tem's comments or reports. That public be given an opportunity to speak on something that they may have not had the opportunity to speak at the beginning of the meeting. Nope, that's not how we want it. We want to streamline this meeting. We want to only allow people to speak at the beginning of the meeting, or if they don't make it in on time, they don't get a chance to speak. Whoa. Where's the democracy in that? We work for these people. I don't care if they come in 2 minutes before the meeting is over. If they want to speak, we should allow them to speak. Me and some of my colleagues, we argued. Nope, we're not going to do it. That's not going to be on the agenda. Okay. Then we move into another phase that was completely new to me. And the time prior to that I've been on council, or the time that we have always discussed issues pertaining to what's on the agenda during the meeting, while it's broadcast and the audience is there to listen and understand what is being debated, what is being argued, what is being passed before council through resolution and how their money is being spent. So if a council member had a question pertaining to a bill, then not only that council person and the colleague and the mayors heard the argument or debate, but the public, people that elected you to argue those things and question and debate those things, get a chance to hear you as well. We're going to have a work session on the third floor, away from the public broadcasting system, and we're going to have it in a conference area where maybe 1/3 of you will be able to fit in after council, department heads, managers, and everybody else seats. Maybe you'll have room for a few people. Again, I contest that. That's not democracy. Why are we away from the public eye when we're supposed to be discussing their agenda, their items, their money, and we're not even giving them the opportunity, even though we have capability of broadcasting everything that we do, but we're not doing it. Why? That's another piece on taking democracy away from you, the public. And a lot of our people and my constituent and my residents and my friends and my colleagues and my neighbors that believe those things are good. You are being lied to. You are being swindled out of your power of democracy from your own hands and your ears and your eyes, and without you even realizing it. That they're telling you that those kind of meetings and work sessions are good for you. They're not. I even question my colleagues, why are we showboating down here at 7 o'clock in council chamber while we're doing the real work on the third floor? Nobody wants to question that. Nobody wants to, debate that. Nobody wants to bring up, hey, you know what? There may be some truth to that. Why are we up on the third floor when we need to be on the second floor with the TV on and the mics on, so that Councilman Miah or Councilman Perotta or Councilman Saad or Councilman Hassan or Councilman Musa or Councilwoman Karpinski or Mayor Karimlaevsky, they're questioning, why is this bill this high? And why are we paying $10,000 for a lot cleanup? They want to know. And why isn't the debris from a abandoned fire, property that was, I forgot the street, right off of Carpenter, why is it still there after months after months? People want to know that we are working for them. We are working for the residents of Hamtramck. So when a resident calls and tells me about the debris, about not being taken care of, they want to know that I brought it up. They want to know that my colleagues got the call and they brought those issues up. But we don't have that opportunity. Those opportunities are taken away, yet my colleagues and some of my constituents are being fed lies that those things are good for you. Those things is what's needed in order for us to finish our work upstairs, away from everyone's eyes and ears, and come downstairs and look in the camera and say, yes, I approve, or no, I don't approve, and then we all go home. That's not democracy. That's not how the process is supposed to be. Democracy is including everyone in the process. Democracy is making sure that questions are being asked. The same way the reporters are asking the questions in the White House now. Somebody asked me, are you leery or do you fear what's going on with Trump and his band and his Muslim band and this band and that band? I'm like, no, I really don't care, because I believe if you have the documents that you're rightfully supposed to be here, there will be a process for you to be here. But the thing that I am fearful, and the thing that concerns me the most, is about the democracy that's on the line right now. It's about the process. It's about having freedom. It's having that ability to practice, to say, to speak. That democracy is at risk right now, is what I'm concerned about. And it's not about the ban or something else that Trump is throwing out on his Twitter feed every 3 o'clock in the morning. That has nothing to do with nothing. What I'm concerned about is the process that is being taken away. They are taking cameras away from the White House briefing. They're taking mics away. They're saying no recording of what's being said. Wait a minute. Our government is transparent. Transparent is what made America what it is today. It's the freedom of democracy, freedom of expressing our opinions, our views, and debating those opinions and views, and being able to share that with anyone, not just the selected few, but with anyone. So some of those things were concerning to our local government and to me, is how the emergency manager in the democracy was, in my opinion, has been under attack. Because I don't think we need to have no work session away from the public eye. I don't think we need to limit public speaking from only beginning of the council meeting. Public should be able to speak at beginning or at the end. I ran into a councilwoman, I believe she was from Sterling Heights, Michigan. And we talked, and so I asked her, I think we was at a conference, and I asked her, hey, how long do you guys allow your residents to speak during a meeting? She was like, what do you mean, how long? We be over there till midnight sometimes. Because they can speak as long as they want. As long as they want to convey their message and the issue that they're facing, they're allowed to speak. We don't shut them up. I'm like, seriously? We only allow 2 minutes for non-agenda items and 3 minutes for agenda items. That's it. And that's only at the beginning. She's like, I don't know how you guys get away with that. But they allow their residents, their constituents that comes out to the meeting to participate. They are taking time out to come see you. They're not seeing you every day. It's not like they're taking up your time every day. We meet in Hamtramck twice a month. I have no problem giving an hour or longer if the residents wants to come up and speak and share their issues or concern, whatever it is. They should be able to come and speak. I mean, maybe we don't get into a debate or engage the public during their comments and their views, but they should be able to speak freely. They should be able to convey their concern and message to the council and mayor freely in a public forum. So again, like I said, some of those things are concerning to me because democracy should not be contained. Democracy should not be controlled by personal guidance or personal philosophy. It should be governed by the majority. It should be governed by the majority that feel what is right, and that message should be conveyed not only to local government but even to the state government. That democracy is not going anywhere. As much as Department of Treasury, Mr. Snyder, and the Republicans and some of those elites from the higher up in the food chain determined that we don't need democracy and we don't need what's good for us to be conveyed from us. We don't need them coming down and telling us what's good for us and when should we speak and when we should not. So I'm going to continuously fight my battle on issues that I know is right in my heart. I know it's right in my mind. That some of these issues that in our community that we've been facing recently has been because of the EM law and has been because of the implementation of the RTAB. This body of government should be able to govern itself. We should be able to make decisions that's best for our community. And other issues, and there are multiple other issues that I'm not going to get into all of that, but I think Curt have covered a lot of those things on how the implementation of some of these things are happening in my minority communities, unfortunately. But we all have to find ways to work together. We have to find ways to challenge those things. Emergency manager is not good for anyone. Like I said, my ultimate thing that I got out of the emergency manager is that people in higher elected office, unfortunately, are taking advantage of communities like ours to push their agenda, to show their control, to show their power or dictator mentality in communities like ours. It's truly unfortunate. And then, like I said, I'll say with the current administration in city of Hamtramck, from day one, advocating that we should work together, but you know what? And I have some of my colleagues here, and some will listen. They can't say that there was one time this current administration said, you know what, I want to call a work session to sit down and just to debate or just to talk on what's on your mind, what's on your chest. Get it off your mind, get it off your chest. Has never happened, you know. And yes, I question the transition board, RTAB. They're supposed to be here to transition with a new manager away from the emergency manager on local control. My current administration, not one day did we sit down and talk and said, how do we relinquish ourselves from the TAB board? How do we find to govern ourselves? How do we work together so that we don't rely on the state to be here? Not one time, 2.5 years, not one time did we meet to discuss how do we get them out of here. So it was truly unfortunate that this administration didn't want to get rid of the TAB, even though they knew that the TAB or the RTAB is not here to help us. You know, but then again, it goes into other aspect of maybe it was because of me. And maybe it was because of the people that was going to make some decision that that was not happening. You know, but like I said, some of those things, in my opinion, I believe should have happened. We should have been able to sit down and air our differences, you know, and be able to say, you know what, we want the RTAB out of here. How do we get it out of him? How do we, you know, work to get them away from our community? We know they're not good. We know they're not here looking out for our best interests. And like you said, fortunately, we have only one member of the board that lives in Hamtramck.
Karen lives here too.
Who?
Karen?
Oh, does she?
Yeah.
You know, so they don't have the others don't have best interest for our community. You know, but like I said, those are some of the challenges that we faced, and hopefully going into the new year or new administration, we'll be able to look into how do we get them out of here. You know, how do we find ways to govern ourselves? You know, the people that's on the council and mayor are fully capable of making informed decisions, and those decisions need to be made in front of the public, not on the third floor. So I'm going to bring a resolution, you know, in the next meeting or two, that all meetings be conducted in the council chambers, and I hope my colleagues will support that. We don't want to be on the third floor. Let's talk about whatever we got to talk about. You know, it's the bill that we're paying, you know, to fix the sewer. Why is it so high? Let the people know that you're asking. You know, why isn't we have street cleaning? You know, how much did we pay for spray patching? You know, let's inform the people so they know we're spending $20,000 a month or $30,000 a month of their money on fixing the potholes. Instead of, hey, is my potholes gonna get fixed? When we're talking about, and my colleagues will question, what streets are on the list for the next month? And that message is being shared, but it's not being shared with the people. So like I said, I'll bring a resolution going forward in the next meeting or so, and I hope we can conduct some of those things on one chamber floor, on the council chamber, second floor, and not be on third floor or any other places. But some of those challenges, like I said, democracy, that concerns me is that people are being lied to, people are being deceived. And I always tell my constituent, my neighbors, my friends, if you got a question, call me, come approach me. I've had differences, I have agreed with, and I have disagreed with, but that's the process of democracy. Convey your message to me why you feel that your point of view is not being heard, or I'm not seeing your point of view. Convey that message to me and make me understand. And I'm going to do the same, trying to explain my point of view and what I see is the right thing to do and why it should be done. So I don't know, Bill, I don't know how much time that I've taken. But thank you very much. Yes, sir.
Came about and being limited only to the mayor and the manager putting stuff on an agenda. How did that process happen, and why is it like that?
The process happened, like I said, at the very beginning when the manager was hired by the emergency manager, and some of the final order that was written by the leaving emergency manager at that point in time. And for some reason, this new manager believed that she was an extension of that emergency manager. Not that she was hired as a manager to work with us to transition out of Department of Treasury's control and Lansing's oversight on what this community was doing. And when we brought up the issue on putting things on the agenda, unfortunately, the administration utilized the charter and the final order as they saw fit. Conveniently, it would be the final order or the charter. And unfortunately, my mayor went along with it. As much as I know my mayor conveys local control and believes in local government, that was a bad part for me to see that. I know how my mayor is. I know strong. I know very determined on making sure the decisions are made by local elected officials for the best interests of their communities. To see how some of and I really can't share some of the personal or confidential things that have transpired on the council and the mayor with the city manager at the beginning, and how the city manager tried to assert herself as the extension of an emergency manager. I wish I could show you some of the emails that was shared between the council and the emergency or the city manager. The lies and deceptions. I'll give you a prime example. Recently, just fresh right in my memory. Not last meeting, but the meeting before, we approved our budget for our next 2017-2018. City manager got up, presented the budget, made a clear, bold-faced lie that our water fund 2 years ago was $800,000 in the red. That it was $800,000 in the red. Our water fund has never been in the red. And right now, I believe our water fund is sitting on above $5 million. So now if her statement was true, that in 2 years ago, that fund was negative $800,000, and within short period of time of 2 years, it's above $5 million. If her statement is true, then all of you been robbed. Then all of you been taken for a ride. You've been paying triple on your water bill for what the water is worth. If her statement is true, from negative $800,000 2 years ago to over $5 million in that same account, that same water fund is right now we're sitting on. If that is true, then you've been paying way, way too much for your water. But I know that has never been true, because that water fund has always been in the black. Has never went $800,000 in the red. But those are some of the things that she will convey to the ones that will listen and believe to be true without looking at it for themselves. You as a resident, you as a tax-paying resident have every right to go look at any one of those accounts and funds at City Hall. You don't believe me? Take a stroll Monday or maybe Wednesday when they're open and go look at the water fund for the last 3 years and call me and tell me I'm wrong. Yes, sir.
I think first we should clarify that you are correct that the water fund has never been in the red, but she actually said accounts receivable was $800,000 in the red, and that has actually since been corrected. The other thing is, you are right that the space in the third floor conference room is a little bit limited, but I've been to every single work session since I've been in office, and I don't think I've ever seen it full to capacity to the point where nobody can be in there. And furthermore, when we vote on resolutions, we all have an opportunity to speak about the resolution, and that's an opportunity to let the public know about what we discussed. So I think it's a little bit misleading to say that we don't have an opportunity to conduct our business in front of the public. That aside, you spoke a lot about the need to operate transparently and openly, but in recent council meetings, you have voted on resolutions for contracts that were not able to be seen by the public, for positions which did not have any credentials or resumes provided in those contracts. So I'm just wondering, how do you reconcile the values of openness that you've been espousing with your recent actions on council? Thank you.
Thank you. On the third floor, it's not always about the resolution. It's about check register that we question. There's check register there. Sometimes there's 30 pages. So those are some of the discussion that I was referring to that is not being conveyed to the public or in front of the public. And the resolutions, some of the discussion is happening on the council chamber, but some of the lengthier conversation are happening on the third floor. My concern is it's not that the room is completely full. Yeah, there may be room for maybe 1 or 2 or maybe 5. It's not the point. It's the point that downstairs we have the ability to broadcast and let the public join in from home. There's a lot of constituents I know that never make it to council meetings, but they're always in tune to their TVs at 7 o'clock, and I know because they call me, hey, I can't hear you, or you know what, well put, I like that point that you made. So those are some of the point that I was bringing up, and in light of the recent situation, here's, and I agree, there could have been things and situation could have been handled a lot better. Yes, I agree. I absolutely agree, Councilman. But at the same token, I mean, look at the situation that we're in today. You know, you have an administration that never implied that they have a transition or a process of transition going forward. This administration not once conveyed that to me or in council in general. I don't know if some of the colleagues of mine has been personally abrupt to the situation that this administration has taken effect as of yesterday. So now, if the transition was supposed to happen, we know it was going to happen almost 5 months. We started this process almost, beginning of February, and maybe even earlier than that. But this administration chose to take a path on appointing someone, not conveying that message, and if this administration had this plan, that could have been conveyed to us Tuesday during our regular meeting, or even Wednesday. Hey, call a special meeting to transition into the next month, and here's the plan. It was not given to me. It was not. I don't think it was given to you or to any other of my colleagues. So this transition, and even after the appointment, the city manager knew that it needed to be passed by resolution and accepted by the current council. Yet, she just made the appointment, did not even request council. Can you guys have a special meeting on Thursday or Friday to confer this appointment? That has not even happened. So, like I said, can we all do the process a little bit better? Yes, absolutely. And some of the situation that have transpired in the last a month or so, it's been because of frustration and because of the unwillingness of this current administration to transition out. So I hope that answered some of your questions, sir.
Just for the record, that was Councilman Ian Perotta just now asking the question. Please identify yourself before you ask a question. Okay, guys, I got 2 other people behind us, and Cary Beth is right here.
Hi, it's Cary Beth Lasley again. I just want to say that actually democracy has been something that I really enjoy about Hamtramck lately. I've been doing democracy dance boardings in the morning because what I did see was that when somebody followed the process and public comment was made, that people actually responded to the public comment, but that when members of our council decided to not follow the law and try to limit public discourse and then ignore public comment, the RTAB was there to save us. When our elected councilmen choose not to listen to us and choose not to include us in the process, we actually only had the RTAB to go to. So it was embarrassing to me as a Democrat to go to a Republican board and ask, please save me from the people I elected. But I was very happy to see that the public was able to actually make a change in their community, and it got people very excited around town, and it's made this a fun place to live again. And I just want to know how you felt about how you feel about including the public in the future, that maybe we could all have a discussion, that we don't have to bring the Republican board on board, and maybe we won't have to go to the other part of the 3-ring circus of democracy to the laws and actually start following them, because at some point somebody's going to get upset and make you start following rules. I know that this hasn't happened in Hamtramck ever, but it's a new day, buddy.
Thank you, Cary. Well, here's the thing. I don't think I've ever shied away from letting the public speak. So that's, I don't know where you would think that I would not allow someone to speak.
No, not listening to what we were saying.
Okay. So when I listen to what you have to say, that doesn't mean I have to respond to you or engage you. I can listen to you and keep my opinion, because maybe I don't feel my opinion is appropriately necessary to share at that point in time. So I mean, sometimes I think it's best that we just listen and not always engage in a conversation. Maybe it's not appropriate for me, you know. And second, I think doing certain things the right way. Let me give you a quick, and I'm going to try to make this one quick, Bill. Here's what happened just this week, okay? Tuesday, we appointed someone. It was rejected by the TAB board. Great. The administration know that they have or should have a plan going forward after Tuesday's rejection from the TAB board. Nothing was conveyed to us, the elected official, that, hey, here is the plan, or here's the contingency plan going forward, because Friday is my last day. Here's what I believe the council needs to do. And whether the current appointee or a different individual or whomever it was, Cary, that should have been...
Cary Beth. Come on, I don't know.
Cary Beth, okay. I'm sorry. If that message was conveyed to us prior to the meeting, this is my contingency plan going forward. Here's my appointee. Council needs to act on that appointee, because as you know in the charter it says council has to approve and then it needs to go to the TAB board. But at least the council would have had the opportunity to approve and say, or disapprove, or whatever the case might have been. At least we would have said, okay, here's the city manager and the administration has given us an option. Okay? We were not given any options, nor anything was conveyed to us that come Friday, I'm going to have something, or give me till tomorrow, I'm going to have something. You know, maybe Tuesday she didn't have it. Nothing was conveyed. So that left the council to make a decision, because if we did not, then come Friday, and you are well aware of, that it would be a vacancy on that position. And that's not what any one of us want. You, me, or anybody, whether we're on this side of the table or this side of the table. So that's what led the council to make an appointment Tuesday night.
Why weren't all 6 councilmen included on the decision?
Why were everybody was included? The discussion was there.
The discussion was going to be before it was, because we thought wanted to add something.
I'd like to move on to the next question, please.
That's fine.
Okay.
But you never had a pointing power to begin with.
All right.
Hey, Anam, it's Jim. You and I know each other.
Yes, sir.
We've seen each other plenty of times, so you know I'm not hostile. With the question I'm about to ask, and I guess my question is I know that the city manager, like, her contract was going to end anyways, correct?
Correct.
Like, very soon. So, my first question is why make the move to end it as like a month before, and then why Turdzak? Like, I lived in Allen Park when he ran that place, and he ran it into the ground. I mean, that guy needs to stay away from city management as much as possible. So I was really surprised. Like, what's that? For Allen Park? No, he was a councilman. Yeah. And we want him to move on. Like, the guy, I don't know if you know, like, with the whole Allen Park debacle with bringing in that other studio, it was not run by us. It was done in the background. A lot of contracts were signed without anybody knowing what was going on. I mean, we as the people were completely left in the dark. And it was managed so poorly, and the contracts that were put together were so bad. And they left our city in such a deficit, and we were hurting so bad. We had to cut police member, like, we had to cut their budgets, and firefighters. I mean, it was bad. I ended up leaving Allen Park and actually came here, but it was rough. And I guess I just don't see the move of, like, why him, and then even, like, why getting rid of her, like, early, instead of just letting her run out, you know?
First question, we were not firing her. We were letting her know and making clear that we were not extending her contract. So we never implied or said or anything to say that we were firing her. The statement was that we were not going to renew your contract. You have to give somebody some notice. So that's what we were doing in February. That letting her know that end of June, we're not going to extend your contract because we lost confidence in you, and we want to be able to search and look for someone new. The second part of your question, so during that process, when we were going through all that, Mr. Churchak reached out to me and sent me his resume and his letter of recommendation that was given by our current mayor, Karen Mahavsky. And in looking at all of those things, and we were only looking for someone to come in for a short period of time. We were not looking to hire someone for a year or two, because we wanted to search and find a right candidate that would come in and take Hamtramck to the next level, or find ways to shine the jewel that we all cherish every day. So my mind was not to look for a candidate that would be here for a long period of time. And looking back and I understand history, and every city manager or their lifespan, we all know, if not most of us know, it's anywhere from 2 to 4 years, unless you have one of those exceptional one that truly has some connection to the community and to the people, and they find ways to shine, brighter than the normal star, and they end up staying for a long period of time in any communities. But on average, we know city managers are anywhere from 2 to 4 years, maybe 5, and changes happen. So when Mr. Turzak, in light of what Mayor Karen had said, in my recollection of the time that he was here was not in one of those smooth times. He was here in a rough patch, and he was able to convey and communicate with all parties that was at play at that time, and found ways to bring certain aspect of let's find ways to work together. And unfortunately, some of the things that has happened, it wasn't him that led us to emergency manager here. That financial crisis was way before any one of those acting city manager was here. And just give you a clarity, at that time there were 4 city managers within a short window of time before Kyle ended up being here for almost about a year. It was after Mr. Cooper was fired. I think it was Mr. Nazarko, Mr. Ed Norris, he was an acting city manager, and there was another, Eric Tungate was here as an acting city manager. So there were multiple individuals just boom, in, out, and Kyle ended up coming in and actually putting some stability there. He was the one that stayed here for almost about a year or so, whatever the time was. But he ended up finding at least the situation and calm the situation down, is how we ended up finding out that the MERS payment was almost $2 million behind. Because those individuals was just, everybody was just juggling certain things, So at any one of those individuals, we never knew that we were $2 million behind on MERS, and continuously getting worse and worse in the situation of paying MERS. When Kyle finally settled everything down is when we was like, oh my God, we're headed to a boo-boo situation. We're $2 million behind. We need to do something, and that's when the talk started with the state. So hopefully that answers a little bit on your question, sir.
The man was asking if you were aware of the accomplishments of Mr. Turzak since the time he left up until now. That's what his question was.
Yeah, I'm sorry, say it again.
The man asked you if you were aware of Mr. Turzak's accomplishments since he left Hamtramck up until now.
Okay, we have a limited amount of time. I'm trying to get everybody to ask the questions that they need to. So please keep your questions and your answers short so we can get through this. Sure. Thanks.
Hello. Hello, Anam. I just had a question. Essentially, during my name is Fadel Almarsoumi. I'm running for Hamtramck Council. But my question is this: during this pursuit and this journey that I've embarked on, and most of the individuals that are running for council, and some of the people that are running for mayor, it seems like some of them aren't necessarily running for themselves, but for a body or particular people that are pushing them for it. Others are running for the wrong reasons because they just want to be able to profess their opinion and want to be able to come in and hit the ground running and start expressing what they feel should be implemented. And as you stated, in democracy, at the end of the day, when we're elected into office, we run for the people. That is our job. Our job is to be able to carry on, their words and as to what they want to see being put into action, but with careful consideration. Other than the MML course, other than that 2-week course where you take in order to learn what your duties are, is there a particular plan that the current councilmen and councilwomen have ready, ready so that when these people are elected in and brought upon, because we have 3, right? 3 are on board right now, and 3 are going to be coming in. That's half the vote right there. Is there anything that you're putting into consideration or articulating so that when those people are brought in, you're able to give them a crash course or assist them with their learning curve, because it's going to be a big deal. You have wisdom, you guys, at the end of the day, you understand as to what needs to be done, and your experience trumps somebody that comes in and just wants to throw their opinions into the ring. So is there anything that you have set for those people, for those people that want to be able to lead by example and represent everybody to the best of their ability? Thank you.
I'll try to make it short as possible. There are 2 phases to that question or answer I'm going to give. One, MML has an entire program, a learning level set up. Councilman in front of you, Councilman Perotta, Councilman Saad, myself, Councilwoman Karpinski. I believe all of us have passed level 1 with Councilwoman, I believe, is already past level 2 at this point in time. We're working on our level 2. Hopefully we'll accomplish that within the next year or sooner. So once you're elected, and 3 of you gentlemen or the ladies will have that opportunity to participate in the MML program. They have beginners, weekenders that you can go in and then spend a weekend. They'll tell you, now you're elected, now what do you do, And then of course, as you get further down, there are multitude of different learning credentials set up for newly elected members through MML. There are webinars you can spend time and learn from. But one thing I'll try, and I will again, hopefully my colleagues will support. Once you guys are elected in November, I will again make a resolution or make a motion that those individuals that's elected be able to partake on some of the work sessions or some of the budgetary or whatever sessions that we may get into, so that way you guys can start focusing on the points the current council are talking about, and so that way you're not coming in January like, oh my gosh, what do I do now? But at least have a month or so, or several different meetings, information you can share and learn and question, so that way you're coming in with a little seasoning to it. So I'll definitely make sure that happens.
With you, or I'm not going to rush through a process because I don't want to get too much dissent throughout that process. And then the other question would be is what do you look for as a councilman when we do have when and if we have a search for a city manager? What type of attributes, aside from the technical ones, what type of kind of characteristics would you want the firm when they do look for that manager? What do you want in that manager? So thank you.
Sure. Just to give you a point, as Councilman Perotta a question earlier, and I'll try to answer his question, that we all could do a process better, including myself. I have taken on this, I forgot, maybe a couple of years ago, during Ramadan. I invited my colleagues and my mayor for a dinner, just to sit down and have dinner. So when everybody got to the dinner at that time it was called Jam Jam. I don't know if some of you guys remember that name. And they were closed for a while. So I invited them, and when they got to the dinner, they were like, "Okay, what's the agenda? What do you want?" I'm like, "No, this is just to have dinner." And we sat around, and a couple of my friends as well. We sat around and had dinner, and just a casual conversation. So I think going forward, as council, in order for us to come together, we must actually sit together. Whether it's over bread or whether it's over coffee, or whether it's over biryani or pierogi or whatever, we gotta find ways to do that. And like I said, including myself, we can all be better at doing that. Now, looking for a new administration or a new city manager, with the credentials being, a given, it has to be someone that understands the dynamic of Hamtramck and has to be able to not only take my opinion and my thoughts and concern onto the table, well as Councilman Perotta's, Councilman Almarsoumi, Councilman Hussain, or whomever is there during their tenure. It must find ways to bring us to the table, the elected official, and hear our thoughts and opinions, whether it's just to record it or just to take it into consideration or to utilize it to make decision, whatever the case may be. But administration, the new person must have that key component, be able to listen and bring us to the table. That would be one of my priorities that I look for on the new person, is that they are receptive to hearing our thoughts and opinions. What would our vision of Hamtramck is. Maybe I only want Joseph Campo to be lit up during the Christmas time, because I think that, to me, makes me warm and fuzzy, because I see other communities are all lit up. And my thing is, we have some money in the DDA, bring a resolution, tell me to bring a resolution before council to approve $10,000 or $5,000 to buy new lights. I'll do that. I'll convey, that message to my colleagues to approve that. Instead of having, a couple of snowflakes on our light poles, which is, don't get me wrong, it's nice, but we're looking at such a small spot, which you don't really have to spend thousands of dollars to make it look like a shining jewel. So that would be some of those things that I look for, is that find ways to bring us to the table, convey and listen and hear our thoughts. Take that for making your decision, or as a point of knowing where our values are and what we want to see in our community. And that would be one of my priorities in the next administration.
Appreciate you very much for coming and supporting this and being respectful to our two guests. This was a very interesting, valuable discussion that we have. We have much more to talk about. I think we just touched the surface, but we did it. So thank you for being here. Have a good evening.